Hello, everyone, and welcome along to your weekly edition of the TII flagship podcast. My name is Craig Derritt, and I'm joined by two of our experienced podcasters for tonight's edition of the show as we look back over what was an eventful day at Easter Road yesterday, and we start to look ahead to the second leg against PSV on Wednesday night. I'm joined tonight by Tommy McIntyre. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm very well, thank you. I heard experienced, your eyes said journeyman. But yeah, delighted to be on.
We welcome all sorts on this podcast, Tommy, so you're more than welcome along. And Ross, it's great to have you on again after yesterday's emotional reaction to the game.
Yeah, it's great to be back to relive the trauma all over again. It's fantastic. I'm buzzing to be back and talk about that game yesterday.
Excellent. Let's hope you're a bit more staunch than you were yesterday.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Before we get into all of the topics, just a word for our sponsors of the podcast, Zenith Coins. They are a company that brings every Rangers fan the opportunity to own their own memorable coin collection. Zenith have created a set of 5 wonderfully crafted coins, each celebrating huge milestones in the club's 150-year history. First one of those is for the founding fathers. Second is for Ibrox Stadium itself. Third is for the European Cup Winners' Cup winning squad from Barcelona in 1972. Fourth for the 9-0 team. And the fifth one, the most recent one, for our 55th League Championship win under Steven Gerrard. They're a great set of coins. We've all seen them. We've all had the chance to see them as well, and they really are top quality. So if you fancy having a look or giving them a shout, go onto their website. All the W's, zenithcoins.com, for all the info on how to buy. So now that official admin's out the way, onto.
Sorry, Craig. Sorry to interrupt there. There's actually another one that you've missed. I had a conversation with Zenith just after the pod the other day, and there's a half and half Rangers Celtic one that they've done in Rossi's name.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So that's just about to hit the market.
Oh, I've been done. I fully expected you were coming out with something there. I've been done completely. Fair play. I'll take that one. That's
it'll be coming through your window.
I thought we had an exclusive there, Tommy, but yeah, special edition for Ross. That's fair enough. So I think if we move on to yesterday's game sooner rather than later, I just wanted to start, Tommy, with your overall thoughts on the game now that you've had sort of 24 hours, 36 hours and slept on it.
Okay, yeah, the heat's come out over it, and I think when you look back at the game, it's not as bad as people maybe first thought, right? But the traits are still there. So forget the result for a moment. Look at the high level themes, and the themes are: do we continue to start games relatively sluggishly? And by starting games, I mean start of first half, start of second half, relatively sluggishly under Gio. Yes. Does the possession-based game necessarily always work particularly well in Scotland? No. Do we have to get our heads around that, and does the management team have to solve that equation? Yes, they do. Were we terrible? No, we weren't. Were we slightly sluggish and a little bit lacklustre? Yes, we were. Were we hampered by 2 red cards that we can absolutely debate later on in the pod? Yes, we were. And people will focus on that because we've got ourselves into a winning position. But in the cold light of day, we were doing just about enough, and then the red cards come in. However, just about enough is not good enough. And ultimately what we're looking at is, 4 games into the season, we've dropped points and we've got pretty heavy schedule coming over. So yeah, my frustration with the team and with the management and with the style of play that we've come to expect hasn't dissipated.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I felt like while we weren't playing at our best and while we weren't full of attacking threat, I did feel like when we went 2-1 up and Tom Lawrence scored that goal, we were comfortable, and Hibs weren't offering a great deal of threat towards our goal at that stage. And I think the substitutions that were coming up and we could all see coming down the line would have only strengthened that and potentially given us a wee bit something different going forward. Ross, we also spoke yesterday in the immediate aftermath of the game. I think we did quite well to keep it quite level-headed, if I'm being honest. But having now had sort of 24, 36 hours to look back on it, what are your views of the game? Have they changed much?
No, not really, to be honest. My views really match Tommy's, to be honest. I don't think Rangers were anywhere near their best yesterday, but as I've just alluded to off camera, and I watched the game back there. I like to do that sometimes when I feel it's a game that sometimes I come out of it with too much emotion and I can't really understand the kind of flow of the game. Now I watched that game back there, and yeah, we weren't great, especially first half. Not enough urgency, intensity wasn't there in our play. What I will say is Hibs were limited. We restricted them to absolutely nothing, really. They didn't offer enough. Now that sometimes you can look at that both ways. You can maybe say that the opposition weren't at their best, but also you probably have to give credit to Rangers there. They stifled Hibs, weren't able to gain any momentum in the game. So I think where my disappointment lies with the game yesterday, I think we were probably fortunate overall to go in with a lead. Right? Now, you can debate the penalty. We were probably fortunate, regardless of the penalty, to go in with a lead. I was very disappointed with the start of the second half yesterday. And I feel exactly the same now watching it back today. Hibs changed the game plan after halftime. They decided to press us high. They started their press on the edge of our box, and we did not cope well with it at all. We just didn't. Now, that worries me that you're so slow and pedestrian in the first half. The opposition then have changed their game plan, and we just didn't adjust it at all. So I'm slightly more annoyed with that concept of the game yesterday. But overall, yeah, I agree with Tommy. Performance wasn't as bad as probably we all felt yesterday. And let's be honest here, I don't like to do this, right? But the referee had a big play in that game yesterday. I don't like saying that. I try and avoid that as much as possible, but he did. Willie Collum had a big say in that game. So, yeah, my views haven't changed too much from yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah, and just for the listeners, Ross went into so much detail there that we'll be waving goodbye to Ross because he's just covered every single point we're going to cover on this podcast. So, anyway, back to the normal agenda that we'd set, Ross. Tommy, your view on the starting lineups. There were a few changes made from midweek. Brian Jack came into the squad, Matondo and Kent as well. Were you quite confident heading into the game with the starting lineup that Gio would put out? Yeah,
I mean, I don't think anybody. I think anybody who's now saying that gave them, what's the best phrase, the fear, or they were particularly worried, I think they're being a bit revisionist there, hindsight and all that type of thing. People have been crying out for Matondo. There's a lot of excitement round about him. You had the likes of Lundstrom already in there. Sands has been playing particularly well. You know, Cholak, Kent, maybe come back to Kent actually at some point in time. Purely because it's one of the things that Ross missed out. But we'll get around to it at some point. I've no doubt. But yeah, I mean, it was a good team. You know what you're going to get when you go to Easter Road, right? And Hibs aren't necessarily a bad side. You need to say that sometimes. You know, I reckon a lot of people can be doom and gloom when you don't get the right result, but Hibs did change their shape. I think Ross has made a very valid and good point there, actually. They changed it up. You know, they came back into the game on the strength of that, and then the sendings off. But to your point, no, when I looked at the team, I thought that can roll its sleeves up. You know, with the likes of Sands, Goldson, Jack, Lundstrom, and then it can go and win it. And ultimately, that's what it had done. It had got itself ahead after a pretty poor start. It had got into the trenches, for want of a better cliche that I can find at this point in time on a Sunday evening. It had done the dirty work, but it had got goals. And so you're thinking, right, okay, we've done what Rangers teams have always had to do by and large at Easter Road, which is go and have to take it away from Hibs. And then, unfortunately, you do need to talk about the referee. So for all the negativity, and that's maybe my main point, for all the negativity about potential starting lineups, how do we change it, individuals didn't particularly perform well, Pondo being a really good example of that, and then the fact we dropped points and starting on a lackluster basis, and all these things that were spoken about here, that team had put itself in a position to win, and then two people were taken off the pitch. You can take from that particular menu whatever you want, but yeah, it didn't particularly worry me when I saw the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Ross, we spoke a bit about the team yesterday, but I just wanted to pick up on a point that Tommy mentioned, and Tommy, I'll come back to you on this as well after Ross's answer, just so you get the chance to give your view. But Ryan Kent, he's not had the greatest start to the season, I think it's fair to say. He has been hampered a little bit by injury, so it's been a bit stop-start, but he's struggled to make any sort of impact at all, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're seeing a wee bit of low confidence from Ryan Kent at the moment. I think originally when he first came back from that knock after Livingston, I think you could put it down to that he'd been out for a game, looked a wee bit rusty. To me, yesterday, he looks a wee bit low in confidence. The reason why I would say that is that fantastic bit of play he has on the left-hand side, and I think this is what Ryan Kent can give you. I know sometimes we feel like he can offer more, but at the same time, he has that ability to create something out of nothing. And we do lack players like that, to be honest with you. Just the ability to beat a man, open some space. And he done that fantastically yesterday when he beat the three men on the edge of the box. He's cut inside and you're just screaming at him to shoot. He's got it there. He can blast that bottom corner. He takes another step and it just looks like a player that's low in confidence. He just looks like he doesn't truly believe that he is going to find the back of the net. So I feel sorry for him in a way. But at the same time, what I will always give Ryan Kent, and I think we could do with some other players doing it sometimes, like, for example, Tommy picked on Matondo yesterday, he will always show for the ball. He will keep going, and his work rate is fantastic as well. So, yeah, I have to agree with what you're saying, though. As much as I can try and be positive about Ryan Kent, he's struggling at the moment. He's struggling. But I think with the quality of player that he is, we need to try and play him through it. I think that's what we've got to do, unfortunately.
Tommy, Ross mentioned Ryan Kent and shooting in the same sentence there, which hasn't had the highest rate of success we've ever seen from a player. What are your thoughts on Ryan Kent so far, and more specifically on his performance yesterday?
I think his shooting resembles me at the 11s, and that is absolutely not a compliment. No, listen, I think I'm not going to replicate what Ross just said there, because I by and large agree with it. You have to hold several positions with Ryan Kent at the one time, right? And pun not intended there, right? But in terms of, do his numbers need to be better? Goals, assists, absolutely, right? Not good enough, must do better. C-. Does he create space and have that ability to keep showing, and he gets rough treatment, keep showing and beat a man? Yes, he does. B+, right? Type of thing, but that's good, and that's something the squad necessarily needs, right? He's also got that injection of pace, so he does make people think about dropping him behind, right? And then probably the most important thing, and I've said this before, it's always worth repeating, it's the intangible stuff that maybe everybody doesn't notice that Ryan Kent gives you as well, because he gets doubled and tripled up on. So that necessarily creates space for other people to exploit. So sometimes Ryan Kent is doing his job. It's the job to not be so visible. It's to let somebody else get in. And maybe that doesn't transfer because somebody doesn't make the right run, doesn't make the right choice, whatever happens, right? But opposition teams set up thinking he's one of the players they think about. And if you've got enough of them and you're in the opposition's heads, then you're in a good place. So when I say you have to take several positions, you have to, and I'll give him an A- for that, right? Since I was doing scores. But you have to hold all of those things with Ryan Kent. And then you need to say to yourself, who's better? In that current squad, who's better? Or who gives you something completely different that you think would be transformative or would give you a better version of that? Right? And the reason there's probably not a snap answer, not that I'm putting you both on the spot, gentlemen, or indeed any of our listeners, they're welcome to fire that in the chat or whatever, it's because there isn't one. Tillman's not quite the same. Lawrence isn't quite the same. Rotondo's still to show. You can look about, you can see other people. But that's why Ryan Kent's there. And that's why successive managers have went to Ryan Kent. Because even when he's not producing something flamboyant or fancy that directly leads to a goal, he's doing some other work that you don't naturally associate with a winger and you don't naturally watch. That's why Ryan Kent's a keeper.
Yeah, I have to agree, to be honest. And I think one of the things that we hoped for when the likes of Tillman, Lawrence, Matondo were all signed this summer was that it would give us that creativity around the edge of the box that potentially we were relying too much on Ryan Kent to provide, or we were relying too much on Joe Aribo and his quick feet around the edge of the box to provide us with. But I think it's safe to say, especially in the first half yesterday, that was just almost non-existent. First half was really poor, I thought, if I'm being honest. It was a really, I think Kyle described it as a boring game of football, and I think that's probably the most apt description of it that I've found so far. There was no real pace about our play, no real tempo about our passing. It just felt like we were going side to side and not really looking for that penetration that we really need. And I think that's become a bit of a pattern of our play this season. And I've seen quite a few people on Twitter and things like that saying are almost panicking and pressing the big red button already on it. I'm not quite at that stage on our style of play, but you can definitely see the difference that it's making. The reason I mentioned the first half though is because Joshua Barry highlighted in a Rangers Review article earlier today, just focusing on Rangers' first half performance and chance creation and quality of good chances in front of goal that are being created. So just a few stats from Joshua's article, and we can kind of use them as context. Ross, I'm going to come to you first on this one with a question, just so you can actually listen to me. And so in the 4 Premiership games that Rangers have had so far, scored 10 goals. 8 of those 10 goals have been in the second half. Excluding Tav's penalty yesterday, because penalties obviously have an extremely high likelihood of scoring. Rangers have averaged an XG of 0.43 in the first half of the 4 matches. Just to give everyone a bit of context and comparison, Celtic have produced an XG of 1.1 in the first half, so over double the level of chance and quality of chance that we've created. Ross, first question on that one. Are we struggling to create chances, do you think, especially in the first half? And if so, why do you think that is?
The short answer to that is yes, we are. We're struggling to create chances. And I am finding it difficult to really find the theory why. I think that double pivot that Van Bronckhorst wants to play is something that we all need to accept now. That is something that he is going to go forward with. Do we necessarily need 2 defensive-minded in that double pivot? I'm not sure. I think that's where we lack sometimes. I think we lack a real ball progressor in there. Now, I think we all seen against PSV on Tuesday night how good Stephen Davis is at that ability to break the lines, pass through the lines, and allow us to create chances. That is something I think we lacked yesterday. We don't seem to have someone in possession in the middle that is brave and that real ability to pass through the lines. I think that's where the problem lies, to be honest with you. I think that's really what we're lacking at the moment. But I also think there is a wee bit in my thoughts that we are struggling for a wee bit of form for guys like Matondo. They're struggling to adapt into the team. Obviously, Kent's having his issues. Lawrence seems to drift in and out of games. As much as I'm a big fan of him, he does drift in and out of games. And Cholak's obviously his hold-up ability. If you don't have others around you contributing to those chances, if your hold-up play isn't great, it just all breaks down. So I think there's a few things that could be worked on. But yeah, we really are struggling to create chances at the moment. And that statistic there around XG is worrying. You know, it is a trend that we've seen last season when you compared Celtic and Rangers. I think it's the expected points table as well, always had Celtic at the top, and it turned out they won the league. So these are things that we do have to pay attention to. It was a fantastic article from Joshua Barry. This is something we need to be aware of. I'm sure the management team are, let's be honest. I'm sure these guys will have the data analysts in there and they will be aware of this. So we all need to wait and see how we combat that. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, Tommy, I just wanted to pick up on Ross's point there, I guess, in terms of the double pivot as he described it, proper football manager talk there. I think when we see the likes of when you've got Lundstrom and Jack together, when we're playing at Ibrox against a Kilmarnock or St Johnstone, or we've got a Lundstrom Kamara type combination, you do start to wonder why we have two typically defensive-minded players in the centre of midfield there. Do you think that's the main issue behind why we're struggling to create chances in the first half of games? Do you think it's more down to sort of tempo and needing to go with that impetus straight from the start? Or because we've seen it in European games where we go straight out of the box, but we don't seem to do it in Premiership games. What's your thoughts on that?
It's quite a broad question there, Craig. Thanks for that. I'm just delighted you didn't ask me about XG. Although a very good article from Joshua, our friends at the Rangers Review. Listen, it depends. So double pivot, hinge, boxed, whatever you want to terminology you want to particularly use in terms of that. I think you're right. It's two holding midfielders. I'm not entirely sure that's necessarily how Gio sees it. And I do agree with the wider point that Ross made about Davis still being absolutely the best forward passer in the squad, which is worrying in its own way, because we've cycled through various different transfer windows and we haven't still found that. Not that they're lying about on the ground, these types of players, right? But you got to do something. And Tillman, Lawrence supposed to be that link. You've still got Arfield in there and type of that dynamism at the halfway quarter stage. There you go. I'll throw in some terminology as well that's baffling even to me, right? But so I don't think Gio sees it that way, because I think what he sees is it's a possession-based game. So if you've got those two midfielders sitting there, what you've got is the ability to control the tempo. And if you can control the tempo, you unleash what is supposed to be our weapons of choice, which is dynamic fullbacks and wide men, right? And that's a very kind of broad stroke answer. I do appreciate different games, different formats, different formations. I think Joe Lack does need slightly more support, although his movement is actually particularly good. I've been more and more impressed the more I've seen him. But I think that's the way Gio sees it, that it's a transitionary thing. So we can take the ball because we like to play out from the back. And then with that, to use Ross's terminology, which is obviously quite correct, the double pivot, you've then got the ability to chop through as quickly as you possibly can. I think the problem inside that is Lundstrom and, let's say, Jack, for example, are not, exactly as Ross says, they are not that forward-facing key quick pass. So if you take one of them out and you say it's a Davis, or you find somebody else or whatever, maybe you drop Lawrence back a little bit, I'm not entirely convinced of that. But if you do that, then all of a sudden that double pivot works slightly better, because you've got protection, attack. And that's maybe what we've been missing. And then everything else that's been spoken about already, which is misfiring people, not taking chances, a little bit of luck not going our way. Put that one definitely on the shelf. I don't have much time for that, but I mention it anyway. But all these things come together. It's 4 games into the season. I'm not exactly, going to set fire to this office and never come on a podcast again. I don't think it's quite that bad. But yeah, these are moments that if they start to become a trend, then your season slowly drifts away from you. And we know from well, and I know we'll touch on it, as you look ahead to what's coming up to us, these are milestone games because they set the tempo and the tone and certainly the feeling around the club for the rest of the season. And I'm thinking about maybe 2 particular league games and a European game, And so that's it. But you asked me why, does that work or not? I get it. I don't think it serves the purpose that Gio wants it to right now, and I don't think it helps to give you your answer.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you obviously mentioned some games we've got coming up. We've obviously got the major one on Wednesday night against PSV away in Europe, but we've also got in quite quick succession, I think, away games to Hearts, Celtic and Aberdeen. I think three of those in the space of 4 weeks, effectively. And like you say, those are milestone games that we've got coming up. But I did, like I said at the start, I think from the way Gio set out the team and when we had 11 men on the park, we were comfortable, and I think we would have seen out at 2-1 anyway. At the very least, might have even gone on and scored a third, but I think we would have at least seen out and secured the 3 points from that stage.
There's something I'd like to pick up that Tommy said there, and I think it's good to highlight. Sorry to cut you off, I didn't mean to apologise for that. I think it's just the balance, isn't it? Like, I don't want us to. Obviously, there's always that kind of raw emotional reaction to a Rangers result, right? And sometimes there's that reaction of we need to wrap it up, we need to start again. I think it's just a balance thing. I think it's just a little tweak in our system for some domestic games. Bringing Jack out for someone with a forward passer with Davis just might make the difference. I don't think there's real concrete issues with Van Bronckhorst's approach. It's just a balance issue for me. So Tommy makes a great point there. I think there's not too much in there that's problematic as it stands. There's just some tweaks I think we need to make.
I get one every few weeks.
Yeah, that was a great point.
Yeah, so, and I think we'll leave it on that one, Tommy. So thanks very much for closing off that section of the podcast. So I think we'll move on to the defence now. I think there were a few criticisms yesterday of the defence, particularly around the second goal and how that was defended. On the podcast yesterday, I think Ross, myself and Kyle all said that the team had been defending as 9 men for 20-25 minutes. They'd put their all into keeping that ball out, and they basically did everything apart from manage to close down Josh Campbell quickly enough. Tommy, there's been a few comments around, was Ryan Jack brave enough? Was Connor Goldson brave enough running out towards that ball? I think the slow-mo replay does them a real disservice, if I'm being honest, just in how the ball moves. But what's your view on that one?
Well, I think you've led with the point, isn't it? Slow-mo is I've never seen a slow-mo video that made somebody look good. Right? It's not a thing. It's basically when you don't get the understanding of how quickly that ball's travelling, what they're trying to do, the thing going through the defender's head, keep your body shape down, worry about your silhouette, don't put an arm out, all these types of things as the ball's coming towards you, right? And then don't let it nick off you, because that might take it past the keeper. So it's not always about throwing your body in front of it. Sometimes there's certain positions or certain areas in the box when a shot comes in that the defence will be told, do not throw yourself in front of it. That's for a keeper. So I don't necessarily think that applies to this one, to be honest with you. Do you know what? It's late on a Sunday night. They should have thrown themselves at it like a grenade, right? Like a cannonball coming towards them. Listen, everybody wants to see that. You want to see your defenders with a bandage on, blood dripping from it, carrying, the severed leg of their opponent. Severed leg optional, by the way. Right? We'll just take the jersey and the 3 points. But yeah, it is one of those ones. My natural reaction, given how I like the game to be played, was to go, that looks a bit weak. That said, if they pull themselves out of the way and it flashes past the top corner, that's smart defending because they've not got in the way of it. But you've asked me to take a position on the fence, or off the fence, I should say. I didn't like it. They should have thrown themselves in front of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about that one, and obviously the severed leg depends on which opponent it is. But Ross, coming to you on that one, do you throw themselves in front of it, or do you think they did as much as they really could?
So I have only seen this clip in the last hour, to be honest with you. I like to take a Twitter detox when Rangers have a poor result. It's something that I always like to do to help my mental health, really.
Apart from this is Ibrox Twitter account, obviously, Ross.
Yes, of course. So, yeah, I have seen the clip. I'm not sure about Ryan Jack. I think Ryan Jack goes in. I think he feels that the ball is past him before he can really make an impact. The one that doesn't look great is Connor Goldson. I think he's got to take that right in the nose. He's got to take it. Now, I love Connor Goldson. I've said that in many podcasts. I love him. But I think for that one, yeah, he's just got to take it. He's got to take it in the face and and move on. Yeah, that was a tough one to watch. I think we obviously didn't see that clip yesterday when we were discussing the game. And we all said it was a great strike from Josh Campbell. Fantastic technique. He's brought it down really well. He's cut across the ball, and really McLaughlin's unsighted. He doesn't really stand a chance. But I think McLaughlin thinks that Connor Goldson's blocking that. I honestly believe he thinks he's blocking it, and that's why he's just not made any attempt to move. Yeah, that was a poor one. Watching that one back, that was a poor one. I actually skipped that bit of the replay, to be honest, when I watched the game back today, because I didn't want to relive that bit. That was a sucker punch. But yeah, your centre half there has got to be taking that in an area that they don't want to take it, basically. So yeah, poor.
Yeah, I'm not sure John McLaughlin thought Connor Goldson was going to do. I just don't think John McLaughlin's seen it because there were so many bodies in his way. But
I need to agree with that. I was with you, Ross, up until John McLaughlin put himself in Connor Goldson's mind there and thought he was taking it in the face. I don't think that's quite.
Yeah, I know. I can see. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but that wasn't even one of the most controversial parts of the game. So we'll move on to the key talking points, and we'll kind of just go on to a quick yes or no. And if you want to give a bit of justification behind your your thinking on it, you can. And obviously Ross coming from the Celtic fans' point of view, so we can take it from there. But Tommy, coming to you first. One of the main claims that we saw from opposition fans was that Hibs should have had a penalty because James Tavernier pulled, I think it was Rocky Bashiri, in the Rangers box. He pulled him down. What was your view of that one? Should that have been a penalty, or was it right not to be given?
Penalty.
I tend to agree.
I don't need to justify myself to anybody. I'm joking, obviously. I'm sure Ross CFC 94 will no doubt pick me up on this. But no, listen, I think it is. I think he puts it's quite clearly grabbed. That's the justification. And I get that there's another man there. I understand that. But if we're being honest with ourselves, be calling for that all day, that's a penalty.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that one. Ross, I can see you nodding your head. You in agreement as well, yeah?
Clearest penalty I've ever seen. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do think it is a penalty. I've watched that one back a few times now. I felt at the time that Paul Hanlon maybe was doing the kind of same with Tavernier, and maybe Willie Collins looked at that and just felt, listen, it's a set piece. Guys are going to be pulling each other's shirt. But the more I watch that, I think Tavernier's very fortunate there that that's not been given as a penalty. He's got a real hold of Rocky Bashiri's shirt, and I think we were fortunate there. So, we got away with that one. It was a penalty.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. Next one, just before half-time, Antonio Cholak's pulled back by Bashiri himself in the penalty area. Tommy, come to you first. Penalty for Rangers?
That's a statement. I'm not answering that. Okay, for you guys and the listeners at home, yes, I'm willing to say that I agree that was a penalty to Rangers.
Ross, you said in the podcast yesterday that it looked soft and potentially wasn't a penalty. You standing by that?
Yeah, I'm standing by that. I'm standing by that point. Yep, I'm going to stand by it. It is soft. It's soft. If that's given against you, you're not too thrilled with that. I can understand the point of view that it is a penalty. I think Antonio Cholak has bought that. Now, that's what we want. We want a striker to buy fouls in and around the box. We've been crying out for that. I think it's soft, but we'll take it. I'm not going to say it's not a penalty because my reputation is just going down the pan here. So we'll just go with that. It was a soft penalty.
To be fair, Ross, as farewell podcast for this Ibrox goal, you're doing well. So I just to add to that, I agree with Ross. I think it is absolutely soft, and Cholak does. It's a really good point. Cholak does buy it, but contact. You can't make an argument against something to say it's not the right contact, and then make an argument for something to say it's the wrong contact or whatever. So I just wanted to. I do agree that it is soft. I get that.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but you get soft-boiled eggs, you get hard-boiled eggs, but at the end of the day, they're both still eggs. So penalty to Rangers it is. Happy days. Into the second. We'll stick in the first half actually. Jake Doyle-Hayes foul on John Lundstrom. Tommy, yellow card, red card, no card at all, just a cynical foul.
I feel this is 3 times you've come to me first. And Ross is having to pick up the slack here somewhat. But I get the question, and I'm not having any sort of barb to that. But with the view of hindsight, because what you're asking me is a consistency question as well, because we know what happened in this game. Do I think either of them are red cards? No. Do I necessarily think anywhere else on the pitch, and by that I mean not in the specific instances, which there's a breakaway, that it would even be a yellow? I'm not entirely convinced either of them would be. It's the fact that they are stopping, breakaways and stuff like that. That's what makes them a yellow. And there you go. That's what makes them a yellow. There is nothing in either of them for me that mandates a straight red.
Yeah, Ross, Tommy's kind of stole my thunder there. I was kind of doing the big build-up and then into the John Lundstrom one, but he's kind of combined the two.
Sum that
up. And your eyes, Ross, is it anything other than a yellow card for each of them?
No, it's a yellow card. I think you can see by my reaction on the podcast yesterday, I had a bit of a rant about this when it came to John Lundstrom's red card. And I'm going to give myself some credit here. I hadn't seen the Twitter reaction at this point, and I mentioned the Doyle-Hayes tackle because that did stick in my mind. As soon as I seen the John Lundstrom tackle, I felt, right, well, that's, it's evened it up now. They're both great tackles. I love to see that. It's just a cynical foul. You take it and you move on. No, the Doyle Hayes one, we're probably going to move on to the Lundstram one, maybe in a wee bit more detail. The Doyle Hayes one is never, ever a red card. It's never a red card.
Yeah, well, since Tommy's had a wee bit of a moan, I'll come to you first on this one, Ross.
I'm just looking for fairness across the podcast landscape. That's all.
He is the boss after all, but I guess I'm the host. So
you're the boss tonight, then, Craig. You're the boss tonight.
Ross, coming to that John Lundstram one, Martin Boyle's breaking away with the ball. I can't remember if it's a Rangers corner or Rangers free kick that they get it from, but Martin Boyle's breaking away the ball. John Lundstram 100% knows what he's doing and what he's trying to do. He's just trying to stop their attack. He doesn't catch him with the studs. He doesn't endanger the opponent. He kind of just clips the side of his leg, doesn't he, and brings him down. I think everyone was shocked, John Lundstram especially, when Willie Collum brandished the red card. It was just and a bit of a nonsensical decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you've came to me first in this one, so I can really defend John Lundstram here and build my reputation back up. Yeah, of course John Lundstram knows what he's doing. It's a cynical foul. Martin Boyle's breaking. I have to say, watch the game back today. Ryan Kent is poor in this play. He runs into a bit of a cul-de-sac and loses the ball, and John Lundstram is essentially trying to recover for him. Now, I think what's maybe frustrating here, and I've seen a few points on Twitter that John Lundstram probably doesn't even need to make the tackle. James Sands looks like he's covering and looks like we would have been okay. But I can understand why he has made the tackle. It's one of those, just eliminate the break. We've lost the ball in potentially a dangerous situation. Bring the player down. There's no malice in it at all. It's just, I know that from a still image, it looks like John Lundstram's quite high. He doesn't really make any contact. He's just clipped Martin Boyle's knee to clip his knees and make him trip. That's all. I said it yesterday. I think it's the reaction of the Hibs players that has a big influence on Willie Collum's decision here. Now, I want a referee in that situation to be strong, take the emotion out of it, and just make the decision based on the game of football in front of him. He's not. He has made that decision with pure emotion, and it will be overturned. I am so confident on that. We've seen a very similar one today in the Newcastle versus Manchester City game with Kieran Trippier. He was sent off and VAR overturned it. It was very similar to the John Lundstram one. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident that was not a red card and it will be overturned by the SFA.
Yeah. Tommy, what do you think Willie Collum thought he saw?
I'm just trying to remember if I've paid the latest instalment of the This Is Ibrox Lawyer retainer fee. So I'm not entirely sure yet. So what I'll do is I'll take a slightly different line on that. I think Ross has touched on some of that as well. He gets caught up in the emotion. I think he is on the wrong side. So what he sees, to some extent, and I'm not going to go down the conspiracy route alleyway. All right. He's on the far side of the challenge. So I think what he sees is what he thinks is a lunge. All right. Now you could play the same out for the Doyle Hayes thing as well. He just jumps in. I do think the reaction of the players gives him maybe some additional thought that has been a lunge because they've reacted in such a vociferous way. He should know better than that. He's been over the course. He's been at Easter Road. He sees how some of these players react. He knows what the game is like. I mean, maybe put that last one in italics, right? But that's what he's there to do. He's also relying on his support team as well. You know, we've got a tendency to just focus on the referee. There is a support team around about the referee who can step in, the assistant refs and stuff like that. But yeah, I think he had made his mind up pretty early. And there was no conversation. Now, we live in a country where, for some absolutely crazy reason, we decide to do live trialling of VAR, but bring it into effect halfway through a season. That's nonsensical. You could have satisfied that by saying, what we'll do is we'll bring it in at the start of the season and we'll do live trialling, and then there'll be appeals processes or whatever. But the clubs would have bought into it. I think the appetite is there. It's not the question you asked me, but don't get me started on VAR. And to Ross's point, yeah, anybody who looks at the Kieran Trippier challenge, you know, VAR flag it. I think the ref was it Jared Gillette today? I think it might have been Jared Gillette. He goes to look at it, and it is very much that. are you going to endanger someone? No, it's not a reckless challenge. It's a clip. We've all done it. We've all had it done to us. And that's the point. That maybe the last point to that is I'm not aware of any communication at the start of the season from the referees via FIFA in terms of this is a new rule where there's a breakaway and you see such a blatant challenge that's going to mandate something else. They're hanging off the back of this lunge thing. Again, don't see that having happened last season. That seems to be a relatively new thing. And that's where he gets himself into a lot of difficulty. And, we've already touched on it, zero consistency. So, yeah, it's a blunder. Not the first blunder from this referee. He's poor. That's the problem. He is absolutely unfit for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more. And we'll come on to a more general discussion on referees in Scotland and VAR. So, Tom, you can keep your powder dry for that one. So we'll come to that in the next 10-15 minutes or so. Ross, final sort of major incident in the game, I guess, was Alfredo Morelos' red card. I think on the instant reaction podcast, I'd kind of said obvious yellow seemed a harsh red. I think watching it back is a red card if I'm being completely honest. What was your view of that one, red card?
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where it's the phrase, you've given the referee a decision to make. And I think when you think of that phrase, it's hard to argue against it not being a red card. Morelos has came on the pitch, clearly trying to make an impact, but he's made an impact in the wrong way. The game wasn't set up for Morelos to come on and start throwing his arms around. We needed him to come on and help us progress up the pitch. And yeah, he let us down yesterday. That was poor from Morelos, especially from someone that really is fighting for his place at the moment. With the way Antonio Cholak has started his Rangers career, he is fighting for his place. I know Alfredo Morelos has been absolutely fantastic for us, but at the end of the day, if someone's ahead of you and they're scoring goals and you're a number 9, you've got a fight in your hands. So yeah, it's a red card. It's a red card. I'd love to sit here and defend Morelos, but I can't in this one. Red card.
Yeah, Tommy, I was actually quite sad to see it from Morelos yesterday. I felt like we were past all this kind of stuff. I was quite disappointed to see the petulance return. I guess it'd been 2.5 seasons since he'd last been sent off, I believe, in a Premiership game. But it was a red card, wasn't it? And what were your thoughts on Morelos' behaviour as a whole?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything I'm hearing there, although I would maybe not tag it under petulance. I think it's just base level stupidity. And I've had enough of that. I think you make a really good point. Alfredo Morelos has matured, all that type of good stuff, right? And I'm not buying into the narrative that he's a hothead or doing any of that kind of red top, lazy journalism type of work. But he is fighting for his place. Cholak has come in and done a really good job. It's the first time that Alfredo Morelos has had a genuine, I was going to say target on his back, but let's just say competition. Jermaine Defoe was a great striker, but he was never going to be a replacement or anything like that. Cholak does the work, and he's also now found his goal-scoring touch. So Morelos is looking at that and thinking, hold on a minute. And then you had all the background to looking to leave and stuff like that as well, but he's still here, and I don't doubt his commitment. But it's a tough game. He's just coming back. It's finely balanced. I mean, I think it was 2-1 when Lundstrom went off, and that was 66, 67 minutes in there somewhere.
65 minutes.
Morelos comes on 75, 74, 75.
So Morelos came on around the 70-minute mark, and then the red card was at 75 minutes.
So 75 minutes, thank you. It's just not good enough. You're looking for him to come on and do what he's asked to do, which is work like a Trojan up the top of that pitch to try and isolate and drag defenders out and make sure they can't build the momentum of parking us so far back that they can then shell balls in and go down wide, which is exactly what led to the equaliser, etc. Although we can touch on maybe the mentality of Rangers during that last 10 minutes if we really want to. He doesn't do any of that. He throws back to a physical aspect to his game, which is a great thing if done correctly. And then he gets himself sent off. And by the way, it's an absolute sending off. And I think any Rangers fan would look at that and saying, "Oh, that's just calling." No, I can walk with you with the Lundstrom one. Morelos makes that happen, and he's let his team down, and he's contributed to 2 points being left in the capital. Now, that might have a wider ripple effect, we hope not, but these are important things, and Alfredo Morelos is not immune to criticism. And quite frankly, he's done a poor job there. The question is, what happens now? You know, he has to go away, he has to think on what he's done, and then come back and reintegrate into the squad type of thing. And it's a poor one. But he gave, what they call him, the justification because he throws the arm back. Not good enough.
Yeah, I think it's absolute madness from Alfredo Morelos, especially with John Lundstrom having already been sent off. Team down to 10 men, backs against the wall, 3 points almost in your grasp if you just see the game out, and he goes and does that. He's not been thinking at all. Read reports today that both will be offered two match bans for their red cards. I would appeal John Lundstrom's one. I would not appeal Alfredo Morelos' one. Does the fact, Tommy, that it's the 2 games they would miss are Ross County and then Queen of the South, does that impact on the decision making and the risk in terms of I don't see there being much risk in appealing Lundstrom's one, to be fair.
I'm with you there. So you don't appeal the Alfredo Morelos one because it's a bit of a stick on. I think you do look at the risk ratio of the games that were coming up. That's not to be disrespectful to those teams. I'm sure they'll give us tough games, but you're expecting us to come out with 6 points. With the Lundstrom one, I think for various reasons you need to appeal it. Even if we were just playing me in the back garden twice, right? I would still expect us to appeal it because, and this is maybe some of the wider stuff where people tie that into conspiracies and stuff like that, which I'm very, very clear to say I am not saying. I don't believe in that type of thing. I believe in ineptitude, and I believe in acceptance of ineptitude, which we have in our game. But there's also been, maybe historically, and you could go back to 2012 to now, or you could make it slightly later, depending on what you're doing. I know the club have done some things, but there's been an appetite and a condition, a landscape where it's been acceptable to make mistakes against Rangers because there's not been, a lot of traction there. I know that's slightly changing. So again, I'm not saying that the people went out their way to make bad decisions. What I'm saying is there's not been much fallout from it. And so now you have to start challenging these things. So you have to go into bat for John Lundstrom because it's an absolutely terrible decision. And if you just drink it down, then you're setting your own type of precedent there. And that's going to come back to haunt you later on in the season. So you're going to bat with that one.
Yeah, I think so. Right, Ross, well, time is marching on. We'll move on to a bit of a general discussion on referees in Scotland. We've covered in quite a bit of detail over the past 2 days that how disappointed we were, and I think that's probably an understatement in Willie Collins' performance yesterday. It's not the first time we've seen performances like that from referees in Scotland. Do you think they're given a bit of a raw deal, given the fact that they're part-time, they work full-time in other jobs throughout the week, and then they go to whether it be Ibrox or another Scottish ground on potentially a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and then again at the weekend they're doing that. Do you think they get a bit of a raw deal from that, or should they just be better?
I think there's a bit of both there. I think they are given a bit of a raw deal. Our referees should be full-time for our league to be taken more seriously, because let's be honest, the reputation of our league is not great. Okay, especially down in England where the Premier League is considered the best league in the world. Our league is looked upon as if it's nowhere near. So I think, we should be striving to make these guys full-time. On the other side of that, some of the decision-making is, there's no rationale for it. I just, some of the decisions I can't understand at all. I can't look at I try to understand where they're coming from. Some of the decisions I just can't get there. And I think that's why we're all screaming out for VAR. The kind of same discussions were happening in the Premier League a few years ago around VAR. They just felt the referees weren't good enough, and they're all full-time. Okay, so this is something that we've all been pushing for to help these guys out and try and eliminate some of the clear and obvious poor decisions. So that is something, again, we talked about this yesterday. The fact it's coming in halfway through a season is just ridiculous. But it is something that we just need to try and get in as soon as possible to help these guys out. So, yeah, they probably are given a bit of a raw deal, to be honest. But some of the decisions are just that John Lundstram one is just absolutely baffling. It's how do you defend them in that situation? I'm really struggling to. I'd love to be able to fight their corner a wee bit, but I can't. I just can't.
Yeah, Tommy, I think their decision making is really one of the key ones. No matter if you're part-time or full-time, you're there to administer the laws of the game. Some of them are really straightforward as we discuss as football fans and as we know them as football fans. Do you think they get a raw deal from that perspective?
So I might be a bit of an outlier here between us and but I'll try and give you a quick answer. Just before that, I went to my own VAR here, and I'm pretty sure that I referred to the County and Queen of the South games as I'd be expecting 6 points. I am aware we're playing Queen of the South in the Cup, by the way. I haven't promoted them into the Premiership, but I don't think anybody sets out to do a bad job, right? And when you're saying there the decisions are baffling, you're absolutely right. So what does that take you to? It takes you to interpretation and transparency, and then an output of that is consistency. So what we're talking about is those three things being the problem in Scottish football, which is you don't really understand the interpretation because we don't see that. They do have conversations with clubs at the start of the season and there's ongoing sessions, right? That does happen, and they talk to teams before matches and stuff. But we don't understand it, so there's a gap there. Then you don't see you don't see the accountability, right? To be honest with you as well. So you don't understand how they got to a decision-making process, right? So you can't say, oh, right, okay, that makes sense. I understand it, because most people will say when the heat dies down, they're only human, right? You probably put a wee sub-layer into that is, and I've said it before, we only concentrate on the referee. There's a couple of other people supposed to be doing a job here as well. It's a collective, right? And it often fails. Or if it doesn't often fail, why is it seeming that way? And then you don't get the consistency because you've not got the first two. So Scottish football wants to get its house in order. There you go. Do that. Clearly explain what your interpretation is. Make sure everybody understands it. Do something for the fans so we can understand where you're coming from, because that will take some of the heat out of the conversation with the refs, because they are only human beings, right? And don't deserve to have bricked through the windows or screamed at in the street or anything like that. Then you get the transparency of certain decision making, and the compliance officer is not the route for that. And then you get to a level of, all right, okay, well, I can live with that, and at least it's consistent because it happened there and then it happened there. There you go. That's the short answer.
There you go. And if the SFA want a consultant, Tommy's rates are really, really fair. So
exorbitant. That's the word you were looking for.
No, I believe I always remember when I was at university, Craig Thompson was still a referee at that point, and he came in and he was talking through the sports science side of things for referees, and he was obviously the first full-time referee that we had in Scotland, and he was talking through his training regime and all that sort of things. And actually, one of the questions he was asked that day was, why are all referees not full-time? And actually, the reason is because a lot of referees are teachers, they're lawyers, they're particularly successful in their fields, and actually they don't want to give up the salary they have from their full-time job in their career to then just become full-time referees. So that's actually one of the major barriers that the SFA are facing, and I don't think that's particularly widely understood by football fans. I think they generally just think referees aren't full-time because the SFA can't afford to pay them, which in a roundabout way is true, but also it requires the referees to want to be full-time as well. Tommy, come to your favourite topic of VAR. Halfway through the season introduction, is just yesterday was a prime example of the inherent issues that decision will ultimately make with a game that could have been decided by a referee's decision incorrectly. VAR could have fixed that quite straightforward. But just because it's coming in after the World Cup, it doesn't get the opportunity to make that decision correct.
Yeah, I'm only going to check if there's bullets in this gun halfway through putting it to my temple and pulling the trigger. Welcome to Scottish football. Listen, I actually understand, right, from a project rollout perspective, what they're saying is live environment. We never publish that. We'll share that with the clubs. We've stress tested it. We'll learn things, and then we get to where people want to even quicker, because we can drop it in halfway through the season as opposed to starting it next season, right? So I'm not being overly glib. I do understand the rationale behind it from a risk-based perspective, it's nonsense, mate, right? Because what you could have done is set out the parameters and said, right, to the clubs, do you want to go with it or do you not want to go with it? Okay, we go with it. What you've done is you've set a two-tier system within your own season, because you're saying the beginning of the season will not be affected by VAR. Post that will be affected by VAR. And somewhere, somebody is tapping keys, right? No doubt on another club blog, but all related to Rangers, to say that's going to be subject to, black magic, right? And I say that from an occult perspective, not a colour perspective. But so all of that's in there. So you should have just have chosen the horse, which is you implement it, you do lessons learned at the end of the season, and that's fine. Or you keep it in the background and you implement it at the start of next season, having calibrated it with the clubs. We get what we usually get, which is the worst of both worlds, because it's a total fudge. So I look forward to, every single club is going to sign VAR in the transfer window. There we go. Magic. I look forward to that for the second half of the season. Should make for great watching.
Yeah, Ross, I'm not going to come to you in the VAR question. I know we discussed that a bit yesterday and Tommy's kind of covered all the key points on it there. So what I'm going to come to you on is actually Glenn Kamara. Left out the squad yesterday. Rumours of a move to Nice on the cards. What are your views on if Glenn Kamara were to leave, and what sort of value would you look for from a transfer fee that would reach a level that we would accept?
Well, from a personal point of view, I'll be sad to see Glenn Kamara move. Massive fan of Glenn Kamara. His ability on the ball, his ability to beat the press when he's under pressure. He was fantastic for us in Europe. So I will be sad to see him go. However, I can understand the speculation around Glenn Kamara right now. He doesn't seem to fit into this Van Bronckhorst side. And he is one of our sellable assets right now. He has a long contract and he is someone that we could move for quite a bit of money. And I'm convinced Ross Wilson really understands his value. So I think Rangers would probably do business with a team that are willing to stump up around maybe 8 to 10 million. I think that's Rangers would come to the table for that. And I think they have to hold out for a value of that, because I have no doubt that if Glenn Kamara goes and plays in Serie A or La Liga or even the Premier League, he will stand out. He's a very technical footballer. He will thrive in these leagues. So we have to push for as much money as possible here. But I think Rangers will come to the table. And listen, that will give us some money to reinvest in that ball progressive midfielder we spoke about earlier. That's football, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to let these guys go to help you out overall as a club. So yeah, I'll be sad to see him go, but it makes sense for me.
Tommy, come to you in that same one. Would you, if the money's right, would you be quite happy to see Glenn Kamara go?
Anybody gets sold if the money's right. Is the glib answer. My apologies, Craig, but it is. Listen, I'm not going to add a lot to what Ross said there. I'll give you a short answer, which is sad to see him go. The right money, that's the business. He's a proper footballer.
Yeah, he really is, and I don't think he's underrated by anyone, any Rangers fans at all. I think we all recognise his ability, but we also understand that he's struggling to fit a wee bit into Van Bronckhorst's system at this moment in time, and he's a player that deserves to be playing every single week wherever he goes. Right, Tommy, 2 minutes left of the podcast. Just want to come back to you. Rangers women had a tremendous win today in the UEFA Women's Champions League first qualifying round. They obviously won midweek against Ferencváros, and then they triumphed again away in Greece to PAOK, winning 4-0. So that's them through to the second stage of qualifying. It's a great result for Rangers women and the club as a whole, isn't it?
It's a fantastic result, and it shows you, if you, as the club did, put in a strategy, go at it and professionalise and make sure that you set the standards right, you can go places. They all deserve it. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes. We're very lucky to be quite close to the women's side of things, and we appreciate the club helping us with that. Yeah, they deserve everything, and let's see how far they can go. It's all a great learning experience for them right now, and that side of our club will only get better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross, it's great to see Rangers doing well in Europe, both on the women's side and hopefully the men's side, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think this one club approach that Rangers are going with at the moment is fantastic. It's fantastic to see. It's a great result, really. An environment that is maybe new to them a wee bit, but they've taken it in their stride, and yeah, an absolutely fantastic result. So fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're bang on 9 o'clock, so I think we'll round it up there. And I've clearly forgotten to turn a light on as it's been getting progressively darker as the podcast has gone on. So lesson learned for next week. Tommy, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you both, and I hope you managed to get out of whoever's house you've evidently broken into. Great.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll jump out the window. We're all good. Ross, thank you very much for joining us again.
Yep, thank you. My reputation's taking a wee bit of a hit again there. So, yep, thanks very much for giving me a platform to do that. Cheers.
Ross, you had to have a reputation to start with for it to take a hit.
Yep, fair. I'll take that one as well.
And if anyone's not got a dig in yet, you can find Ross on Twitter as well. So make sure you do that. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel and turn on those notifications as well, so you get an email every time we go live. But we're back again during the week as we build up, obviously, towards the PSV second leg, and obviously discuss the aftermath as well. So our midweek bulletins are every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, live at 7 p.m. across YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. And we'll be back as well next Sunday.